To do and mitigate electromagnetic radiation 24/7, you have to look to nature's resonance. And then the question is, how much of nature's resonance do we need?
The EMF rocks are actually emitting from the rocks themselves going through that special bag that you've got. Is that synchronizing the body back to a proper electrical field?
Use them as is and put one on your bed. You'll sleep up to 60% deeper because you're just not being inundated from the radiation. They're thinking, Note, I want to talk to you about the glucose spiking and diabetes and how that's tied into it too. Let me share the tapping protocol. What I do is I check people for their weak links for electromagnetic radiations. So the first step for healing is
Hey, I am here today with Justin Frandson, and Justin's a really interesting guy. Justin, I met you in Dallas just a little while ago, but our conversations were instantaneous. And what I'd love to do, if you could give a quick snapshot of who you are, what you're doing right now, how you ended up doing what you're doing, and then we can get right into the gold of the conversation.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Ian, for having me on. I'm Justin Frandson, founder of athleticism.com. I'm an athleticism performance coach. I do nerve, fascia, coordination, whole body, whole brain work for amateur and professional athletes for almost 30 years. And I saw in my field our athletes breaking down from wearable technology. And that's what got me into looking to nature to solve this challenge, and rolled out EMF Rocks and our grounding bags, which I'm sure we'll dive into these at a little later in the conversation, but they're hand-mind crystals or nature's resonance to help create a coherence and help us deal with the 5G and all the electricity and electromagnetic radiation stressors in our environment.
Cool. So this has led to, you saw significant issues like as far as injuries or just energy, endurance, stamina. What was brain health? What was happening with the athletes that were you could obviously be seeing the effect of the wearables and all the garbage around us?
Definitely. Well, it started with a pain in the wrist. So it was about the time the smartwatches were being recalled. And the guy comes up to me. He's one of the strongest, fittest guys you've ever seen. He said, Justin, I have pain in my wrist. I said, well, where? And he pointed right to where his watch was. I looked down, I said, well, hey, that's radiation. Take that watch off and then the pain should go away. And sure enough, he did. And that was pretty much the aha moment for me, where I know I need to dive into it a lot further. We did see, and we continue to see, all the cognitive challenges that go along with it, the unforced errors, just the behavioral challenges that athletes will see. But right out of the gates, and then you get injuries too, and the dehydration. We're seeing an epidemic of chronic dehydration with them as well, which that lane so well as also. But I think the pain was the initial indicator that was really, really tangible.
Yeah, very interesting on that. Back in 2018, I was using my knee driving to put my phone on it instead of having a proper attachment in the car. I would just use it like that because then I wouldn't have to take it out of the attachment. It would just come off my knee if I had to address something, which you shouldn't be doing when you're driving anyway. But at any rate, I noticed after a few months of doing that I had a very sore knee, and it was just that knee, and I hadn't done anything to injure it because I'd done work on my knees already, and it was just sore, right? So anyway, I took that off, and it took about 2 weeks for the pain to go away. So, but what's really what I find really fascinating here, because I think a lot of people have become very familiar with the biological and physical effects and the mental effects of all this garbage with cell phones, from brain tumors holding into the head to the Wi-Fi's in schools that are way too strong for kids. And I ran into a study through Magda Havas. Are you familiar with Magda Havas?
Oh, yes, definitely. I had her on a podcast.
Cool. Okay, yeah. Because I met her back in 2008, and then she's been a PhD, scientist working tenured in Peterborough at Trent, to teach on the biological effects. I think she's the only one in the world. And she went and with a collaboration from a gentleman out of the UK, they saw a study that where children were really heavily affected with things like leukemia and just weird stuff that was in a big higher ratio after they put these large cell towers in these neighborhoods. That was before 5G. And it turns out that the myelin sheath does not develop properly between the age of 0 and 21 in a human body if they're subjected to Wi-Fi radiation, which is the radio frequencies. What have you seen around that?
I guess we've seen so much. I mean, all the studies that she's rolling out and so many others, you're seeing the breakdown from the voltage-gated calcium channels from Martin Paul's work, and it just leads on into the myelin sheaths and all. So it's the wild thing about EMFs and the way the government's been able to get away with it for so long at such high levels is because it's pretty much everything's affected by it, and it just depends on the person's weak link in their body and where that exposure is hitting them more than anything.
Yeah, it was for the kids. I mean, she was flipping out because the Wi-Fi machinery, we'll call it, in the schools is way over the top for strength. So it can go right through the concrete steel walls. It just blasts everything and is blasting these children. And she had a whole campaign to try to get it out. And then they brought in their PhD scientist saying there's no proof whatsoever of this going on. There's nothing to it at all. And they put that person on the news and made Magda look like a conspiracy theorist, which she's not. I mean, she's the furthest thing from. She's looking at the actual physical stuff. And then to go into that realm. So what you have done is, like when I met you, what was super intriguing is you had your EMF Rocks, and I bought a bunch from you, and I love them. And I always have it with me in my little back pouch, and always have it with me sleeping. I actually put 2 of the big bags, one on each side of me, in the bed when I'm sleeping, and noticed a significant difference in just the gentleness of the room and the deeper sleep. So could you explain how that works? Because that's pretty almost mythological, but it's real.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this last weekend I was at Dr. Patrick Porter's event in Las Vegas, and it was really cool. He has this Neuralink assessment, and his head, Francisco, a tech guy that runs all of the tech for him, was there assessing people. And I said, hey, do a quick test on the grounding bags. And so he had a 59-year-old guy who's really healthy jump up and he got tested. And so he did a before test, and then after, about 10 minutes later or so, he sat him back down, and we put a grounding bag on his lap, and then we put one on the foot of the chair, and his circulation increased over like 25%. And it went from like 500 to 800 or whatever it is. And anyhow, he sent me the study. I gotta find it. But it was absolutely remarkable. His jaw was dropped because it showed that the circulation really was improved. And how did that happen? Well, it's because the radiation in our environment affects our biofield, and the biofield affects the chemistry, and then the chemistry, as very commonly known, your blood will start to stick and stack or reload, so it slows the blood down. So if you're slowing the blood down, you're not going to have the faculties to do all the things you need to do. Now, when you're sleeping, the big thing, what happens is your brain defaults to the bandwidth of what that radiation is in your environment. So you never get into that twilight. You go into a twilight sleep, you never get into that deep restorative sleep. And that's the challenge and I'll get into the numbers of all the speeds of the waveforms in a sec, but essentially that's what happens is it's polluting our environment. Our brain tries to figure out what's pinging it. And then we never get into that deep restorative state because it's a stressor. And our brain's like, what in the world? Why is something tapping me essentially on my shoulder all night when I'm sleeping?
Right. Yeah. One of the big problems is even people may turn Wi-Fi off in their environment, put their phones in airplane mode, but depending on where they're living, they're getting blasted from neighbors all the way through the building and or from cell towers. And the cell towers, I think, are the biggest things, right? The close proximity 5Gs and then all that stuff. So now this versus a grounding sheet, because I've used grounding sheets over the years. In Canada, there are problems if you don't go and put a plate in the ground and tie into it. And
Yeah.
even then I question it because how does that affect? Can the radiation get through that grounding sheet into you outside of it, or is it just all draining into the ground? And what are the measurements on the body itself? Like when you're measuring voltage on the body, or what's building up like a capacitor, is that brought into line? And what are the numbers around there?
Yeah, so I question it too. I mean, I think going direct into the ground is a way more appropriate way to do it than through electricity, because we are capacitors, essentially. We're a battery. We're a body battery. We can emit a frequency and we can absorb a frequency. And it's really simple for me. And we can get up to absorbing, 6 volts, and we should carry less than 1, of this non-native form in our bodies. And so if you're plugging a grounding sheet, it's one of my big buttons right now. Electric cars and the grounding sheets are my big buttons right now. Because so many people think that they're doing themselves a good or the environment good, but actually plugging something into the outlet, it might read electrons, maybe, but it's not telling the whole story. It's not telling the wireless. It's not telling how affected your brain is from the wireless signals. It's not reading the electricity, the milligauss coming off the outlet, because electricity, everybody, number one, it's not good for us. Number two, it doesn't travel inside the wires. So I can get a meter and meter the milligauss coming off of that from several feet away from an outlet. So how do people think there's something off with the sheets where they're just reading one, but they're not telling the whole story, kind of how you alluded to.
Right. And the EMF rocks are actually emitting from the rocks themselves going through that special bag that you've got. Is that synchronizing the body back to a proper electrical field to purge what is coming in from all these other forces? Yeah,
it does. I think there's a combination of a few things going on there. It can absorb, it can emit. It's similar to how we are, because we're one with nature. It has, ironically, I mean, and this is probably one of the coolest things with it, is I had a gal 2 weeks ago at a conference. She was a biogeometry expert. She was dowsing, and she brought her pendant, and she wanted to see how much moisture content was in it. So she put a bottle of water, and she has her paper out where you can measure like to like, and that it was 80% similar to the bottle of water. So I'll send you the video, but basically the moisture content is about 80%. Well, what are we? We're, close to that as well in moisture in our body. So we're one with nature. These crystals are nature's purest resonance in a live form with moisture content in it. So it'll kick off a frequency to basically convert. It's a physics component where it's converting the one directional waveforms into something that are unpolarized, that distribute equally in every direction, that our bodies will accept. And that's one of the easiest ways that I like to describe it.
Are these rocks tied into the circadian rhythm of the change during the day and night?
Oh, I haven't tested any of that, but I mean, yeah, the temperature will change. You'll start to see it. They're alive, and they last for 2 to 3 years. So there's a long shelf life. We double seal the moisture in them. So as long as the moisture's in them, they're holding their form and they're holding their function for EMF protection. So they'll rev with you no matter where you are or what time of day it is. And then you can take them outside every so often. The full-size grounding bag, you can ground them every month to 5 months. Like they're ground, so they don't need to be reground technically, but there is so much inundation going on. So we've seen a 5% uptick in deep sleep when people do it once a month for 15, 20 minutes, put it in the shade outside somewhere on the lawn or on the ground. And yeah, they'll get the benefits from it in a big way.
All right, so that recharges it. So that's essential. The smaller ones, how often do you have to do the smaller ones?
Yeah, that one every 2 weeks, put it on the ground for a few minutes. I mean, for me, the second it hits the ground, I can feel it release. But for a lot of other people, they say it, or some people say it takes a little longer, some of the muscle testing docs, and that might have been for that person. But I just toss mine on the ground for a few minutes every week or two, the mini grounding bag, because I carry it in my pocket, literally always. You'll see a mini in the pocket and then full size on the bed. And I had put my phone, kind of how you were saying, I put my phone on the outside of it. So there's a buffer, a layer of protection between the phone that's in my pocket and my body.
Right. Yeah, cool. Now, could you pronounce the name of the crystal for me?
Oh, yeah. So I call it a colloidal crystal because no one knows the other names for it. So it's a colloidal crystal. We have moisture and magnetic properties. It's been compressed from an underground water source. And that's its beautiful pink crystals. The technical term would be montmorillonite. And it's a hand mine in the Western U.S. in a special area. It's 85% pure of the stone, and you'll never find anything else that pure.
Montmorillonite. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of a tongue twister if you don't get it just right. Yeah, very good. And so there's a vast supply of this?
Yes. We have multiple mines in this region that we can extract it from. And it's really the beauty of looking at nature's resonances to find the right region for it, because most people will sell this stone, but it's really bentonite clay. It's really, which is 8 to 30% pure montmorillonite. So it's kind of just dirt essentially. And if someone claims that they have a pure stone, they don't, because they haven't done the lab tests like we have to show it. So plus the way we mine it, the way we extract it, and then seal it and deploy it is why it's one of the leading natural EMF protection products out there. And natural meaning, what I like to call it is, it's really nature's resonance, Ian. This isn't something that's modified. You're literally bringing nature into your home, because we live in these homes, but they're electrical boxes. I mean, literally, and now we're all electricians carrying routers with batteries in our hands all the time. Some people put it on their laps with their laptops, but we're being inundated at levels that we've never seen. So, it's a craziest thing. And if we're looking for a man-made answer of plugging something into an outlet or modifying a resonance to overpower all the other modified resonances, that's a futile effort. Why would we want to modify something and put it on a pendant, embed a frequency into a pendant or a sticker, or broadcast it, or what have you, or put it on the back of your phone, or add a copper to it and have it as a conductor? We don't want to do that. Like there's modified frequencies like scalar waves in Rife machines and such. Let me be clear about this. Those are great for healing. PEMF stuff, great for healing. They're short-term duration healing properties out of those products. To do and mitigate electromagnetic radiation 24/7, it's a futile effort. You have to look to nature's resonance. And then the question is, how much of nature's resonance do we need in our environment? Do we need, 1 bag for a bed, 5 clear 2,000 square feet, 7 for a Tesla or electric car, and then 7 if you have solar? So we've established protocols for how much, but that's kind of the basics on it.
Right. And these electric car things, I've been so against them right from the start as well, because they say they put shielding in some of them. The problem is it's just it's a diminishing scale. They are blasting people, and plus they're a control thing. They can blow the crazy things up if because they're computerized. Just everything about them I don't like. And we could talk about that for hours. We're not going to waste our time. It's interesting how they're talking in Canada now about putting a carbon tax of another 65 cents a liter on the gas to get people to go to the battery-powered cars. I'd be more than happy to pay $65 a liter more. I'm just joking. To be able to drive a fuel-based car. They call it fossil fuels. That's another lie. They're not fossil fuels. It's a totally renewable resource. And you can actually burn petroleum products super clean. And what's really, I worked in the oil field for 17 years, and I was like in the field, and I was around the engineers. We had downhole completions, downhole workovers. We did all kinds of drilling and various different functions to get that going. And I go, okay, so what's a barrel of oil worth? Okay, so it's worth X amount, depending on what the price is. What's in that barrel of oil? Well, the vast majority of the value in that barrel of oil goes to the petrochemical industry, which is for the plastics and all the different, higher tech things that they use to build stuff. That's where the value is. The gasoline and the diesel is a waste product that costs them nothing because they make so much money off the derivatives. All that stuff is free. So they're going to try to tell us, oh yeah, well, whoever they are. But it's an interesting phenomena. So what are we going to do, Justin, if we end up getting forced into electric vehicles where we will not have even access? They will outlaw and ban diesel and gasoline vehicles.
Well, I mean, each country and each individual in each country has to really start making better choices and not really sell their soul just for the almighty dollar. And we were looking at buying cars, and you can get a brand new car for $25,000 less. It's the same car, same $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 car for $20,000+ less if you get an electric one. I mean, they're trying to get you at the wallet, and we just got to say no. We got to keep driving our combustion cars. You're right. Fossil fuels, like that whole word is a fossil. That's like a bone, right? I mean, it's not renewable.
Even that's a total fiasco. There is no fossils in those wells. That is a term that they brought out trying to say dinosaurs. Yeah, right. Give me a break. We're drilling 15,000 feet into the earth, and that's where the majority of it was, up in northern BC and Grand Prairie, Alberta areas. And they're trying to tell us it's fossil fuels. No, it's a totally renewable resource. The earth produces endless amounts. In the 1990s, when I left the oil field, I left in 94. And when that happened, just before that, I think it was 92, they found a deposit off the coast of Brazil that eclipses the Saudi Arabia, the Persian Gulf stuff.
Wow.
You go to the Persian Gulf. I'll give you an example. In Canada, so we would drill anywhere from 3,000 down to 15,000. And the 3,000 foot deep are just oil wells with a pump. The deeper you go, the more pressure there is, the more that they're self-producing, because you can't have a 15,000 foot, pump down that low. And the whole principle of that was, getting, well, first of all, this totally cheap fuel, but we could also go to hydrogen. What about hydrogen? Hydrogen is definitely the better way. On top of that is nuclear. So back in I think it was around 1977, 78, my ex-brother-in-law, who was married to my younger sister, she's not younger than me, but she's the youngest one of the girls, he was an absolute genius. This guy was so crazy smart. He was in fourth year university. This is where I realized how smart this guy was. He partied his face off, smoking dope, drinking, it was just party time back in the 70s. And he would get 94, 96% on the finals in university. Well, half the class was failing at the highest level of mathematics you could get. He wouldn't study. He'd go listen to the prof and then be able to do that. He didn't miss classes, But anyway, and he told me, he said, because I said, what do you see the trend right now? Because I'd only been working in the oil field for a year, and I came back to Ontario for the summer, was hanging out with him and my cousin. And this is before he was married to my sister even. He said, well, no, he said that the energy source that is the cleanest and the most pure is nuclear. I go, really? Well, what about all the radiation? He goes, no, that's mythology. Okay. Obviously, some of the big nuclear reactors, if they have the spill outs, then there can be problems. But there's nuclear reactors that you can run, but you would never, ever have to fuel your car up again. A nuclear sub could run for 1,000 years without being refueled. So it's obvious it has nothing to do with pollution. It has nothing to do with the environment. If they were really serious and conscious about it, we would be running hydrogen or nuclear.
Yeah, and Japan's already going to hydrogen. We just got to get the stations for us to fill them up with it. And there's so many other alternatives and options that are cleaner. And right now, just lean in on combustion and stay away from electric, because the extraction process for electric vehicles, like the mining for that, it's pretty toxic, I think, for all that. And then they're using coal, cadmium, and precious minerals. You're sitting on a massive battery, which is 18% lower testosterone, and they kind of, to your point, it's a fire hazard. They can shut it down at any time. They could lock you in your car. I mean, it doesn't get more fuel efficient. They're super heavy. There's literally probably the dumbest part about it is they're saying let's use less electricity, but then they're mandating you to use a vehicle that uses more electricity. So there's just no rhyme or reason. There's no infrastructure. I think it's a fad. I'm hoping it's a fad and it'll just go away at some point. But we gotta, just to get back to your first question, is we gotta really stay with our core values of combustion, and which is great for our freedoms, because you're gonna get a lot further on a tank of gas and being able to fill it up and not spending an hour and a half at your house filling it up, and then throw the electricity grid off of your home when you do charge it at night. And so if you have a healthy home and you're charging your car at night, you're taking your house and making it unhealthy, and more vibrations, which mess up your sleep, and endocrine, which kind of get us back in this whole EMF topic. So yeah, those things are just nasty all around.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed, because I really focused on the tire dust, there's 10 billion pounds of tire dust released into the atmosphere every year in the United States. And that is, full of all these different toxics, from ceramics to rubber, cotton, epoxies, resins, metals, plastics, whatever. And that's releasing. And the electric powered cars are burning tires up way faster than a normal gas powered car. So they're amplifying the real pollutants, which are the nano razor blades going up into the atmosphere more than ever. And they've got to come up with better technology for tires that don't wear out like that. But again, that doesn't feed the economy. You want to have a tire that wears out so they can resell it to you. And it's absolutely brutal across the board. And then you mentioned electricity is giving off. I mean, you have to produce, you got to burn coal in certain places, which is more heavy metals, to get electricity if it's not hydro. And like, again, going back to the oil field, just to touch on that one last point, in Alberta, a well will be like 100 barrels a day up to 1,000 barrels a day. 1,000 barrels a day is a very valuable well, right? You go to the Persian Gulf, they're abandoning wells below 50,000 barrels a day. They drill shallow into the earth. They're self-producing, and the average well will do 90,000 barrels a day in the Persian Gulf. Again, meaning all that stuff, like what's up, right? So all the way around, that's another subject but it ties in, because the question is why? Is there a conspiracy to do something harmful? Absolutely. And it's subsidized, it's funded, it's an agenda, it's pushed. There's got to become more awareness. People have got to boycott these things, because they're just harming themselves, and they're going to have to get like 4 bags. It would be great for your sales. 4 bags of EMF Rocks in their car, right?
Yeah, 7. Yeah, actually.
7? Oh, man, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's help everyone understand like what all this stuff means. When we say electromagnetic radiation or 4G, 5G, What does it mean for our body? Can I dive into those numbers?
Please do, yes.
So this is a little storytelling for you guys, and I'm going to turn it into a wave per second so everyone can understand a wave per second. So we're all on the same page. Let's start with our body and then the earth and how we're one with that. When we're sleeping, I know you're familiar with the delta and theta brainwave states, right, Ian?
Yes.
And for your audience, that is the deep sleep states where we're in lucid dreams, rapid eye movement, and our brainwave state is known to rev at 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz. Now, that hertz, we're going to convert that to a wave per second. So we're 1 or below 1 to 8 waves per second when we're sleeping. When our athletes with athleticism.com are in the flow state, they're about 9 to 13 hertz or waves per second. That's when they're in the zone. They can't miss. Mm-hmm. And then the Schumann resonance of the earth, the healing pulse of the earth, is known to be about 7.83 hertz or waves per second. So just for the record, we rev, sleep, and optimize literally one with nature's resonance at a really close, number to that. So that's us and nature. Now let's talk about these cell phones. 4G, the minimum level of it, which was strategically placed, is 2.45 gigahertz. So gigahertz means billions of waves per cycle. So they're looking at 2.45 billion waves per second with the lowest level of 4G, which is the lowest level that destructures water in our body. So we're dehydrating us and our planet just with that bandwidth on up. And so if you talk about, Bluetooth is less, it's megahertz, well, that's in the millions of waves per second. So we're way past that. We're in the billions. So let's go to 5G. 5G is 60 to 90 gigahertz. That's 60 to 90 billion waves per second. Now, this is the biggest thing right here, is all of this stuff, Ian, they're just starting with radiation. They're just starting. Telecom is allowed to go up to 300 gigahertz. That's over 3 times the highest level of 5G. That's well over 10 zeros faster than how we sleep, rev, and optimize of a one-directional polarizing radiation waveform.
Brutal. Yeah, those numbers are super real. And so people are required to educate themselves about this by the data you're producing. And it's very interesting how you got this really inspired through this athleticism, because that's where you have a high performance person. They got to get the deeper sleep. They have to get proper nutrition. They have their brain frequencies have to be dialed into the coordination for movement, for accuracy, for all of the above. And you see that immediately just from them having a stupid smartwatch, right? I call them very stupid smartwatches, like those stupid little smart cars. But I've never had wearable technology that I've worn ever. I use a Rado, only powered by movement. And not only that, it's got ceramic coating the entire band and the back of the face of the watch back here. So I don't have metal touching my skin either, because I don't want a metal transference coming through, and is probably picking up some of these frequencies and still messing with me. Maybe I shouldn't even wear this. But this is the most benign one that I could find at the time. This is goes back in 2019 or 2018. And but it doesn't keep time that accurately. I have to move it all the time or it starts to slow down.
That's funny. Yeah. So, on that note, basically what we got to do is we got to get back into knowing how we feel. And the wearable tech is this whole meta universe. It's basically saying it's wanting us to test ourselves every day. It's literally tracking everything every second of the day. So people are getting used to having something tell you when to sleep, when to eat, how many steps you take, how good you slept. Stop it, everyone.
Right.
We got to get back to connecting to God and knowing how you feel, knowing what time it is, knowing how many steps you took and when you're thirsty or hungry or when you had a great sleep or a workout. Like, that's what health is. And we got to get out of this meta universe and get away from technology telling us, all this stuff and using us. We got to use technology. I don't test athletes every day. I work with professional athletes for, 3 decades almost. We don't test them every day. Are you kidding me? If we're going to test their one max rep, you're not going to do that every day. You'd blow them out. So how do we think we can get away with it? You establish a baseline, maybe do a midpoint and an endpoint. So if you want to check your sleep, wear the ring, check your sleep or whatever you want to do to check it. And then, and then if you want to check it 4 months later, check it. But at least you won't have this stuff on you 24/7.
Right. And you can also turn the Bluetooth off when it is on you.
Right.
A lot of people don't. They leave it on all the time.
Yeah.
Turn it off. Let it do its monitoring and then take it off and put it over in the counter and then turn the Bluetooth on and let it feed the information back. But yeah, from glucose monitors to you name it, that's just started. People they want to become cyborgs or something. I don't know what they want to do. But it messes all of the equilibrium of the body up. I mean, even to go and get your blood panels and get all the different testing done, people are seeing, they think they're doing all the right stuff, but then all their numbers go off and they're trying to figure it out. One thing I noticed about you right away when I met you, within just a few minutes of meeting you, I could tell immediately that you're an explorer, you're an adventurer, and you're very, very open to anything that would be natural in rhythm, percussion, frequency, and vibration. It has to be natural. So when I was telling you about how my body got totally healed, all the structure of my body was totally healed from extreme injuries when I was young, and I'm running around like a kid right now with totally fluid joints and everything's no pain. I can do whatever I want. I couldn't even think of doing a chair squat, before I learned this in 2017 because my knees were that screwed up at 60 years old. And then you said, well, show me. And I was like, but hold it, we're at this public venue with all these people in this lineup behind us. And you go, well, no, just show me. But you didn't really, but you were, even before you really got to see a whole lot, you just rolled up your sleeve and I did your liver. And it blew up because everybody's breathing. And what we're breathing is all this. Can you imagine what the nanoparticulates are doing inside of our body with all these frequencies on top of it all? Because that's all the metals, from the brake dust and the tire dust and the cremated bodies and all the stuff that we're constantly breathing 24 hours a day. Just type in crematoriums on Google Maps from where you are right now. They're in your neighborhoods and they're burning human bodies in an incinerator. They have no filtration to get those nanoparticles from going out the stack. So you got an entire human body's life that accumulated all that stuff emitting out of the stack and going right into the neighborhoods. Even if it was in the industrial areas, it's still going to carry and float throughout all the breezes. And there's 164,000 people who die every day. So you've got all this number. It's insane that 85% of the bodies are being cremated. So we've got to take action. You've got to get the stuff out. So what was it like when you got that treatment and the crowd was watching? What was your experience?
Well, first off, likewise, we had an instant connection. So I had all the faith in you and I wanted to experience what your lane, your approach was. So I've done some wild things in my exploring stages of healing in my healing journey, which I'm always on and still on, and it's an ongoing process for me and for everyone. It's healing and performance for me. And so I put out my right arm and he started tapping away on it. And so for the first minute, I think I was like, wow, this is unique. And I think after a minute or so, I looked down to see what my arm really looked like. And then it was absolutely purple and black and blue and whatever color it turns. And so I'm like, all right, let's go.
Right.
Is that all you got? No, it was super fun. So there literally was a line of about 25, 30 people like watching me get essentially, for lack of a better word, tortured from this treatment. And I'm just like, okay, how long do we go? And you're like 5 minutes. I'm like, it's 5 minutes. And it was like 2 minutes. And you're like, no, it's not. And so we just kept going, and it was super fun. And it was like the crazy part of me when you stopped, I was like ready for more because I didn't know when it was going to end. And
right.
So, but then I looked down and my arm, it had some white stuff coming out of it, and I couldn't flex it fully because the blood had pooled and it was all dead blood. And the craziest thing is I looked at another guy's pictures 3 days later, and his was still black and blue. Literally, you said, you're like, Justin, your arm's going to clear up in 3 days, depending on your circulation. And I'm super active and a waterman, and literally in 3 days, it had flushed, and there was like very little, if any, sign of the treatment from it. So and then I felt a lot better. Like it stepped up my energy probably about 20%.
For sure, yeah, because then it was releasing your liver, gallbladder, spleen, and large intestine of all the debris, because that's the direct connection to the meridians. And I've had people, it didn't happen with you because you're at a much healthier status, but there was a woman one time who had a big, huge black mark right above the tip of the top of the liver on her right side after, back in that day, it was with the hand for 10 minutes instead of the little activator. Wow. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, because she did the treatment herself. And then she said, I think I hurt myself. And she sent me this picture. I said, no, you didn't hurt yourself at all. That's the actual release of the garbage in your liver. It's just showing up in the skin. That should be gone right away. Within half an hour, that was gone. But people feel so much better. I had an interesting, and I've done hundreds of these treatments to help people and show them. The treatments don't cause that. They release it. The body is causing it. But when I was I was at Archangel Summit, which they now call Destiny, in Toronto a weekend ago. And when I was there, a friend of mine, Garib, who's been around the health space a long time, he's in his 50s, really cool guy. He's like you. He's just like, just show me, let's just do this. I said, well, let's start with your heart and lungs on the left side. And he goes, okay. And you're just standing there. You're not doing any exercise, right? And I did the quick treatment. Within 2 minutes, he was like, oh, man, because he had actually tried to do it himself before he wasn't doing it right. And it's a simple technique. But it started to light up, like significantly light up. And then the last 3 minutes of the 5-minute treatment, he started to sweat, like literally like drips coming off of him. And he was just standing there, not doing any exercise. And then he got lightheaded. He goes, I'm getting lightheaded. I said, well, just don't move. Let's just keep going. We finished the 5 minutes, and he had to sit down on the ground because there was no chair there. He just sat down on the ground and waited. He had to wait about a little more than 5 minutes, just to his lightheadedness to go enough away to walk around. And he goes, how's that even possible? Like my elbow? Because he had no elbow injury. I said, no, that, because he knew the principles of this. He's a super intelligent guy. And he said, yeah, this is like releasing like crazy. And within and all the sweating kept going on. And then that finally stopped. We were going to do his right arm, but he had to fly out in a flight before I could get to him because we were in and out of the event. But yeah, he lives in New York City, right in Manhattan. So you can imagine the pollution level there with all the taxi cabs and all the stuff that's whipping around there.
Well, I want more. So I know we're going to see each other in a couple weeks. So I want more. I got to do the whole thing. I want to clear my body out, all this stuff. And so it's going to be, I'll be a glutton for punishment for a bit, but it's all for a better purpose, because what happens is these particles and the toxicity, they're all charged from radiation, well, not the rubber per se, but the heavy metals are. And until you can get your body to flush and get this out, you become such a conductor for this stuff. And that's the challenge with it's how full of toxicity is your bucket. And
Mm-hmm.
when people's buckets are full and then they run over, we just it's devastating. Another friend in my neighborhood, which is, I'm in Newport Beach, like Laguna Beach area, where Southern California, probably arguably one of the healthiest areas in the world, active, fit. Another person just, passed on from the shot and complications of getting the shot. So it just crazy to see what's going on. So you got to get this bucket of fullness of toxicity out. So whatever they throw at you, it's not going to affect you.
Right. That's the thing. And we have other protocols around that as well, but that's the start, is to get that frequency, vibration, percussion to release it, which is everything. We're all frequency beings.
Right.
And the fact that the EMF rocks are emitting the proper stuff. And I love the fact that you pointed out, this is not laying on a pulse electromagnetic frequency mat for 8 minutes or 16 or 24. It's all about 24 hours a day, keeping that in your back pocket and having it in your sleep, and bring it in. Even in a non-electric car, you still got all kinds of smart technology in that car, stupid technology in that car that's emitting all this stuff at us constantly, whether you like it or not. Even if you don't have the Bluetooth on, you're still going to be getting hit with all this technology. So yeah, we really got to pay attention. I'm super excited to get the word out about what you've got to offer here, because it's super simple. It's just like, okay, yeah, that one actually makes sense. And we're going to help a lot of people with this.
I appreciate it. And let me share the tapping protocol too, because I think it goes in line with your percussion technique. And what I do is I check people for their weak links for electromagnetic radiation. So I'm a AAK guy and applied kinesiologist, and then I'll be officially a homeopathic doctor very soon. But I like to test the body's weak links, and the weak links for EMF are your eyes, your teeth, your thymus, and your intestines. So those are the 4 areas that I muscle test for EMF, basically decharging the body. Those are the weak links. Athletes' weak links would be their wrists or their ankles. Oh, I sprained my one of the joints. But for EMF, for us, are those 4 areas. So what we do is, when you get your grounding bag, grab it and tap on it. And the tapping is a succussion technique. And what you're doing is you're activating the moisture and magnetic properties, and you're directing them to your thymus, which is your electrical system for the body, to recharge your body battery. Or you do the eyes and then the teeth and then the intestine below your belly button. It's really tough to heal, everybody, when you lose your polarity, when you're decharged. So the first step for healing is to recharge your body battery and get out into nature. But then when you have the grounding bags, do the tapping protocol, because it's doing 2 things. It's locally recharging your body battery. And then the second thing is it's clearing and detoxing your biofield of any stuck EMF. Because remember, our air is our environment. Our air, ether, plasma, we're connected to it through our fascia, I believe, that extends 8 feet and then on beyond that into ether and plasma. They say horses, their biofield travels 5 times greater than ours. I feel ours is further than that. But for Kirlian photography, that's what they're showing it measures at as far as what we can read. So Eileen McCusick's work, talking about emotional clearing and tuning fork work in your biofield, we know we can hold stuck stuff in our energy field that affects the chemistry of our body. So that's what we're doing, is we got to clear all this stuck radiation out of our biofield in our external environment. And then we can also address the internal environment, which you do so well with your percussion stuff too. And then you could do apple cider vinegar, bentonite clay, protease, like a proteolytic enzyme at the same time. So you get the combination of all of those is what we got to look at for flushing our body.
Right. Yeah, it's an all-encompassing holistic approach. So do you have a picture of the bag that's outside of the satchel?
The grounding bag inside the bag. What's inside it?
No, just the bag itself without so people can see the special bag that you put them in, or do you have any?
Yeah, let me open it up. So remember, we keep it sealed, so you're not supposed to open it up, but I do want to show you what the crystals look like, and normally I have oh, here we go. I do have I have it. I have a sample. So they're beautiful pink crystals. If you can see I have a window right here, so the reflection. But that's what they look like. Yeah. They're a softer, soapier rock that literally will dry out if you unseal it. If they go in the wash, they turn to poultice or get wet. When they expire, you sprinkle them on your garden, and it's the most nutrient-dense garden you could ever have for minerals for your garden. But other than that, you keep them sealed and use them as is, and put one on your bed. You'll sleep up to 60% deeper because you're just not being inundated from the radiation. There's a coherence created.
Mm-hmm. Right. And this is an actual special metal. The one you showed us the samples that you can see the rock, but the ones that are inside the cloth bag are actually metal.
No, this is what's inside it.
Oh, cool. I took my note and I thought I saw a metal bag, but okay.
No. Oh, the static bag. Yeah. So there's a static. So the cool thing, what we do is we double seal them inside of the silver static bag. And so this inner bag is sealed in a static bag and then deployed in the outer decorative cloth.
Right.
The silver static bag does two things. It double seals it to preserve it, but it's essentially, when you put a negative ionic charge of the earth, the silver bag amplifies the frequency. There's some physics component to it. When you put a phone inside of it, it squashes it because the phone's a polarizing charge. So, excuse me, there's something physics-wise where I don't know how that all came together, but it was my one big question is why do we have to put it in this static bag? And the doctors that were testing were like, Justin, it just tests way better in the static bag because it just is amplified. It softens, it amplifies it, and it just makes it perfect. Something physics-wise that does that.
Right. And I like the way you do the applied kinesiology, because I've met so many people that do muscle testing and they don't have any clue what they're doing. They don't do it right. They're using to try to sell a pendant or some kind of device that sticks on a phone. And it's just so fake. But when you did it, I could tell immediately you're doing it correctly, because you're not putting huge pressure. It's the sensitivity of that little bit of a shift and change, not just like trying to pound on somebody or push like weight down. And I really appreciate that. So on the homeopathic side, how does homeopathy tie into all this?
Homeopathy, if you really study it, it's just the resonance of nature that we're bringing into our environment, and natural frequencies from plant medicine or herbs, essential oils. You put it on your skin. I mean, literally, it's things that create a environment in your body that is conducive for health. And then all the other stuff goes away. It's not something that kills something. So this would be the most natural approach, similar to homeopathy for healing or EMF protection. The other products, they're making towers and they're blasting frequencies out, and they're thousands of dollars for these products. And to do that, you don't know when or they're stop working, and they say they work forever. But there's fields change constantly. I mean, just in your phone, you have 5 different frequencies emitting. You have cellular, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, broadband spectrum, which is what all your apps on your phone are tracking you. They're doing all the tracking, and that's why the life of your battery expires really quickly. And then it has GPS. So every device, even the cars, they have all those. So our bodies are just like, what in the world's going on? There are different pulses that go on with these. So there's multiple bandwidths in each. And that's where 5G is really challenging. Similar to a smart meter, there's a pulsing sensation. And when you throw that pulse out, our bodies are like, what the heck? What the heck? It's that kind of that glucose spike of an alarm going off in the morning first thing. It spikes your glucose, and that's why you don't want to wake up with an alarm shocking you. So we got to understand the physics behind all this stuff and how to get around it. And then I also, just thinking a note, I want to talk to you about the glucose spiking and diabetes and how that's tied into it too.
Yeah, let's talk about that right now. That's good.
So one of our clients, it was like an Aaron Brockovich situation. They lived in this neighborhood that was all cross-wired. And the gas and electric company, they had like 7 milligauss all around their house. It was crazy. Outside, it should be 1 or below. 7's 7 times higher than what is bioinitiative.org would consider safe and our bodies would consider manageable. So anyhow, inside their house, they had, basically 11 to 16 times the higher allowable amount of dirty electricity from their transformer in their backyard that was cross-wired and not properly wired. And then, of course, it was a brand new smart home, so they had all the smart and LED stuff. So when they would come in their house, you could feel the vibration, you could hear it. Their kid got childhood diabetes at age 12 after living in it for 12 years. And that the 10 to 12 year mark is where I'm seeing everyone breaks down, like with big conditions: cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular, and infertility. It's 12 years of this stuff, 10 years, I should say, is where it all starts. So anyhow, they decided to clean their house, mitigate their house, and then have it mitigated. And they went on a trip to Fiji. So they're flying from Orange County to Fiji, which is a long flight. The mom has her new smartwatch, which is ironic because the kid and the mom are both wearing wearable technology, which is what caused the challenge in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But the mom's worried about her child dying potentially, so they wanted to monitor the glucose level. So they're wearing these smartwatches. They jump on the airplane, and when everyone turn on their Wi-Fi, the kid's glucose spikes 200 points and he gets a bloody nose. Wow. And he's sitting right next to his mom. Didn't eat a thing. So it's literally our external environment that we need to really understand about, all this EMF stuff. That's what's messing with our body. It's not all just internal environment, what you're consuming. It's the external. And then on the 3/4 of the flight, 3/4 of the way, about half the people woke up, after they slept and they turned their Wi-Fi back on. His glucose, the kid was sleeping. His glucose spikes another 100 points when half the people turn it on, and he got a bloody nose again while he was sleeping. So there's a direct correlation with this glucose spiking from radiation. And I definitely want to mention the book, The Invisible Rainbow, and how that categorizes the history of electricity in life. And before 1889, before we put electricity in our homes, any challenges that a major population would have were from cosmic shifts, from solar flares, atmospheric pressure shifts in our electromagnetic blanket of an atmosphere. And then they called the flu back then the flu because it was under the influence of the stars. And then ever since we put the electricity in the homes, and then we rolled out radio waves that was correlated with the 1918, the Spanish flu, and then satellites and with the Hong Kong flu, and radar with World War II, and then 5G, obviously correlated with the coronavirus. These are concrete, definitive, no scratch in your heads. They radiated the crap out of us, and our bodies did our best to adapt to it at the levels we were capable. It wasn't a virus flying around to kill anyone.
Right. Yeah. It's a different kind of electronic virus. It's got to be some kind of a radio frequency problem where we're becoming antennas And we can get, because there's billions of images coming through our bodies right now that we can't see in the invisible realm. And if we put one of these stupid phones up, it'll pick it up right here, right here, right there, right here. It picks it up everywhere. So it's obvious that our bodies are definitely sensing something. And it's affecting.
Wow, you're so spot on. And just when you picked up your phone, it made me think of another topic that not many are really talking about. But, you know, when you look at your screen of your phone, you think it's benign, but other than maybe the lighting of it, so you're like, oh, it's blue light. Well, the biggest thing is there's a camera, and that camera is, now they have the bandwidth that the iPhone, think 16, but even lower than that. They started with facial recognition, and the way they use it is through radar. So they're using radar coming out of the little camera. Now they're reading every little micro facial expression and eye movement to read what your passwords are, what you're typing, how your eyes work, and how quickly you can type and what you're looking at. So I'm seeing a lot of eye challenges from the radar. So what I'm going to encourage people is to get something that flaps over that camera, because you only use that if you're doing a selfie, of yourself, or you're FaceTiming, yourself. So you never use that camera, but it uses you, and then they use that as well, that camera, to see if it's night or day for the rhythm. So you might have to turn your screen, the brightness of it a little up a little bit, because it'll think it's night if you cover it, because the phone's really that stupid. But we got to really start blocking that, because they're hurting us with this. We're seeing macular degeneration younger than ever, and it's not just from these massive computer screen times. I believe it's from the cameras in these devices as well.
I have a meter from medical electronics. It's called a light noise detector. I'll bring it with me when I see you in Colorado. And it tells very, very clearly that when you point it at the camera, it goes, and it's literally screaming. It literally screams. We have lighting from Lithonia, from different other medical devices that are healing lights. When you point the meter at those lights, it has that kind of a whispering sound, which is very healing. And the same applies to all the smart TVs. I went down to, I remember back in the day when I got the meter, I went down to get my mom a new television. And I went to Best Buy, and 90% of those screens were screaming blue murder. Like just literally, like very, very noisy. And then the odd one, would be, and even from the same brand, it didn't matter. Then the one would be like, shh, quiet. Well, they should make all of them that way.
They can.
Why would they make? Yeah, but they don't.
They don't. They're cutting corners. And Ian, the sound that those meters make are the vibration that our bodies feel that most humans don't have the capacity to hear. But when I go underwater in my cove in Laguna Beach, I can hear the dolphins squeaking away. I can hear the whales when they're nearby. And when there's an electric foil board or some type of electric motor going, it sounds like noise pollution underwater. And so we can hear these bandwidths so much clearer underwater, but the meters are awesome to teach kids. If you did a one-directional acoustimeter, like a radio frequency meter, and you point it at a cell phone, the meter will start screaming. Then you point it away, and it quiets down. You point it back at the device, and it starts screaming. And you can teach kids that these aren't security blankets. These stinking phones, they're weapons. They're directed weaponry. And we got to develop usage protocols with them, and create coherence with them when we're using these, and really lean into going out into nature and regrounding yourself. It's free. You guys, Eileen McCusick says it best, our bodies are the body battery. We get a negative charge from the earth. We pull those electrons from it to support the electron transport chain, which gives us energy. We get energy from the sun because, of course, we're this holograph of light. So it's just feeding our energy. That's how our body communicates us through light. Hopefully we get minerals from the food. And if you're consuming biodynamic, food that's not riddled in herbicides and pesticides, we get it from the air, as Dr. Zach Bush will say, breathing these waves and particles and breathing in minerals from the air. And then hopefully we get it from our water, if it's structured in spring water, and we get the conductivity of it all from there. If we're missing any one of those 5 elements, our body battery is decharged. If we run out of water in our car battery, it dies. If we have several other elements with our body, that we don't just die, but those are the pillars for health that we got to lean in on, that are free, that we can just go outside into nature and recharge our bodies so perfectly for free.
Right. And that brings up the topic of what shields us from the inside out is sea minerals, but they have to be purified.
Yeah.
I gave you a little sample of that sea mineral I got, this ultra pure, right?
Yes.
You tried that? So yeah, that's the stuff. You got to put that in the water. Then it goes in and supports the whole electrolytic fluid of the body to keep the electrical system shielded and controlled, and it lights you up without the wrong kind of lit up. So this has been very thorough to talk about. I'm sure we could keep going about a lot of different things, but we're kind of coming to the top of the hour, I think. Yeah, we're right at the top of the hour. So we're going to wrap, but where's the best place to find you, Justin, for people online?
Well, EMFRocks.com is where you find all of our grounding bags, Faraday bags. Athleticism.com, it's spelled athletic, ISM.com, is where you find all of our curated health products, toothpaste, MCT oils, Campo Beauty, essential oils, and so much more. And online, or on social media, I should say, on Instagram, at EMF Rocks, at Athleticism Neurostacking. And I also am a brand partner for Human Garage. So check us out on Human Garage's Instagram every Friday at noon Pacific time. That's the self-healing fascia maneuver program, which we love and talk about hydrating our fascia. And so we're just building this community. So thank you guys. Thank you, Ian, for sharing this with your audience, and let's keep growing our communities and binding them together and raising the consciousness of this planet.
Yeah, and I loved the Human Garage. That was great. You had me on that interview with there, and that's such an awesome brand, Human Garage. It's like, yeah, you got to treat your body like a real vehicle, a biological, mechanical, dynamic vehicle. So I'll definitely look forward to catching you at noon. Is that noon Pacific?
Noon Pacific time, yeah.
Okay, noon Pacific on Fridays. All right. Well, Justin, it's been a total pleasure and a lot of fun, very informative, lots of educational material for all the listeners. And thank you again for your time and all the work you're doing, and looking forward to more collaborations in the future.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll catch up soon.